All right, this week we are here with Cameron Joseph. Now, Cameron has a Masters of Science from Edith Cowan University, specialising in strength and conditioning. He is also one of the owners and founders of CrossFit South Wharf in South Melbourne. I think that's where it is, because they've moved in the last 12 months. And he is also taken up a new side business, just in case he's not busy enough, of Overpowered Athletics. He's recently completed the Joe DeFranco and Jimmy Smith CPPS course as well. Now, your story today is going to be very interesting compared to a lot of people's, because you came back from overseas right when this hit the fan.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Yeah. But before we get into that, I'm going to get you just to give us a bit more of your background and how you got into becoming a personal trainer, PT, business owner, you name it, whatever other hat you've got on there.
Oh man, yeah, this is quite a story. It all starts back to when I was 14 years old, was like my very first kind of experience in the gym, which really kind of started with me initially taking over my mum's gym membership, which just wasn't getting used. It was like I think it was like a Genesis or a Phoenix, one of those chain gyms. She wasn't using the membership, so we just we walked in, paid our $50 to transfer it over into my name. And it started with me getting an initial consultation with one of their trainers just to get me started on a program, because, first time in the gym, had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Followed that for like 3 months, went and did my check-in with him again, gave me a new program, kind of just did that, cycle for like the first 6 to 9 months. And I guess what really made me kind of fall in love with it was I remember getting back to school in I think it was year 10. And the feedback, like the positive feedback that I was getting from a lot of my friends and a lot of my other schoolmates was awesome. Like, I was the fat kid growing up. So to see, to hear them, praise the weight that I'd lost, all that sort of stuff, really kind of reinforced what I was doing. That was really kind of like my first experience with being in the gym. And then that was kind of like, well, if I can feel this good in exercising and seeing these results, then what could I do to help other people feel that way as well? So like fast tracking, getting out of high school, I went straight into getting my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness and personal training. I started working for the YMCA, which is where you and I met, or many moons ago.
Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah, gosh, crazy. But that was like my first real kind of gig in the fitness industry. I then went to university. I got a bachelor's of exercise science at VU in Melbourne. Did that, and then went on and got my master's degree at Edith Cowan. That was done online, which was really, really cool. I absolutely loved that course. Kind of during that period, I had fallen in love with CrossFit through, just some people that I knew and that I was hanging out with, but also like a little bit of an accident that I had in the gym as well that kind of caused me to rethink. Yeah, you remember that one too. Kind of got me to rethink the way I was training and what I was doing in the gym. Which kind of led me to explore different modalities and other styles of fitness, because I'd kind of penciled myself into, the classic bro sesh type training. Met a couple of people through that CrossFit gym, which kind of led me to then tee up with a couple of other investors to found and own CrossFit South Wharf. So I was doing my master's degree while we did that, which For anyone watching this, I do not recommend that you start a business while you're doing a master's degree. Insane. But we got that done. I finished my master's in the first year of operation. So when I did that, that was, I mean, gosh, the story of me starting the gym was crazy. Like I had myself and the other person that we got into it, like we really had no idea what we were doing when we started. We didn't know business. We didn't have business experience. All we knew was that we loved CrossFit. We loved the feeling that it puts onto people in a community, and we wanted to do something better. And we had the means to be able to do that as well through a couple of investors that we knew. So that was, that was really awesome. Did that for about 4 years, and then kind of got to a point where my girlfriend and I were really looking at like, okay, what's the next step for us? What's something else that we can do to kind of broaden and expand our horizons? And we started looking overseas. So we moved over to Canada 2018. We moved to Canada, I think it was, 2018 in June. Did our 2 years. We're actually looking at staying there until COVID hit and basically flipped the world upside down. And, one thing just kind of continued leading to another. And we found ourselves in June this year with no choice but to come home. So we've been back in Melbourne now for the last 3 months. And, right now there's really no choice but to try and be as successful as I possibly can while I'm here. While we're stuck, if there's no chance for us to get back to Canada, I'm going to give it a real hot go, which has kind of led me to this new venture, Overpowered Athletics now. And that's kind of like a little nutshell of my life in the last 12 years.
Oh, that's all right. That's good. Now, we're going to go back a little bit here. I need you to explain to people what happened that day to your legs, because I was not there and did not witness it.
Okay.
I know one of our other trainers was there at the day it happened, but if you could explain to people exactly what that injury was, they might rethink some of the stuff that they're doing.
Sure. All right. So basically, it was there was one morning. It was leg day. Got into the end of my workout. Last exercise of the session was calf raises on a 45-degree leg press machine. And I mean, we all know what our 45-degree calf raises, they have like the handles that you flip off to the side so that the platform can move kind of up and down. Now, normally when you do a calf raise exercise, the range of motion is so small that it doesn't require you to move those handles. And I'd done this exercise thousands of times before. I've never once moved the handles to do this exercise previously. I cannot tell you why this was the one time that I did move the handles. I just when you're on autopilot and you just do things without even realizing that you've done it. It's kind of one of those things. So I did my set. I had 220 kilograms on the platform. And then obviously because I didn't realize that I had turned the handles out, I also didn't think to turn the handles in when I finished my set. So I basically finished my set and then just completely relaxed, thinking, well, the arms are there to catch the platform. Obviously, without the arms there, basically 220 kilos, if this is me and this is the platform, basically crashed down on me. So I'm pinned under, 220 kilos worth of weight. And then, we had Jason, who was the instructor on time, who was on the floor at the time. Basically, he was the first one on the scene, kind of helped me get out of the machine. Basically laid around for about 45 to 60 minutes, unable to walk until I could get taken to hospital. And so basically what happened, the injury was a broken middle toe on my right foot. And on my second foot, I had basically completely separated and dislocated the forefoot from the midfoot. So basically where the hand's probably the easiest way. There's a joint through the middle of the foot right here.
Yeah.
I completely dislocated and separated that and kind of smushed all of these toes kind of here.
Yeah.
And then my big toe was kind of like out here. Yeah, the official diagnosis was called a Liz Frank fracture. Typically, you see it in equestrian people who they'll fall off a horse and their feet get caught in the shoe holds. You see it in skiers and snowboarders and stuff like that. Basically, anytime like a foot is enclosed in in an object, and then there's like a rapid change of direction. So that was that.
Yeah, that was a pretty gruesome memory in my head when they were trying to explain it to me, and I was just like, stop talking. I don't want to hear any more of this.
I remember hearing that there was footage on the security cameras of it, and the center director at the time had seen it, and I just straight up refused to have a look at it. I did not want to see it at all. But yeah, we can laugh about it now, but back at the time it was it was horrible, man.
I really wanted to point that story out that you brought it up, because all it was like you said, it was just a half a second of not realizing what you're doing.
Yep.
And it was like 12 months for you out. Bang. So
yeah, I was in hospital for 2 weeks without able to get out of bed at all. So I was laying down on my back with ice packs on my feet for 2 weeks before I could have my surgery. And then that was basically 4 screws put into the foot to put everything back together. Then that was followed by 3 months of me in a wheelchair. Was then able to have the surgery to have the screws taken out. And then by that point, it's okay, now you got to relearn how to walk. So physio basically started from, just me standing up out of my wheelchair. Now that to this day is probably one of the scariest things that I've ever had to do. Like when the physio said, okay, you're going to stand up today. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like I haven't stood up for 4.5 months. And she's like, yep, let's do it. And I remember going to stand up and my legs were violently shaking under my body weight, trying to support me. And I was holding onto a table as well. Crazy.
Yeah. Insane. And yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's letting people know that doesn't matter what environment, but in the gym, you've got to be switched on. You can't have that half a second brain fart turns into, like you said, it's 6 months before you're walking.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of a cautionary tale for people to be aware of, stay switched on in the gym. Yes, have fun, enjoy it, but when you got to work, like really switch on and get it done.
Yeah, I think it really kind of showed, like I'd been in the industry by that point already like 3 years as a personal trainer, and I'd been working out for about 7 years. So like it was not like it was the first time that I was ever doing that exercise. I knew what I was doing, and I tell that story to people a lot, because if it's an injury that can happen to someone with years of experience, then, you got to respect what you're doing when you're in the gym, whether you are getting under a barbell to do a squat or you're doing a deadlift or something as, basic and probably an exercise that many people make fun of, being a calf raise on a leg press. Like you've got to respect the exercise that you're doing, and treat it with that respect and hit it like focus when, as you said, when it's time to go to work, like focus on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on from this story and start getting into training with Cam, I'm going to call it.
Yep.
But it's your philosophy on training.
Yep. All right. So basically training with me at the moment, my training style has changed over the years, which naturally it should. I have the benefit of having quite a few certifications and education under my belt. And, I feel like I'm really fortunate to have experienced a lot of really, really smart people in the industry, from my, Dan Baker, who was part of my master's degree, and then going to doing the Joe DeFranco CPPS course while I was over in Canada. Definitely been able to get a lot of experience. I would say at the heart of it, it's a very CrossFit based, functional movements performed at, or constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity, as kind of like the skeleton of what I do. But then I lean very heavily into the strength and conditioning and athletic worlds, which I've been fortunate enough to have experience in. And I make sure that when I'm writing my workouts, like CrossFit always gets this rap of being random and just throwing exercises at a wall and just seeing what sticks. I make a point of making sure that there is a method to the workout that's being done. And there is a difference between variation and randomness. So I'm making sure that even though my workouts vary from session to session for the person, it has a point. There is a reason why we're doing those exercises. They do lead to a bigger purpose, not just, hey, let's pick 4 exercises out of a bucket and that's what we're going to do today. So I'm quite methodical from that standpoint. I'm a huge numbers guy, so I love my spreadsheets and I love calculating, sets, reps, volume, loads, all of that sort of stuff. Like I get off on that kind of stuff, and I definitely lean into that when I'm programming. I also just feel that when someone is paying me a premium, they deserve that level of attention from me. I would feel guilty to take money from someone when I'm just making a workout up on the spot. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them the care, because that's what I would expect if I was paying someone to do my programming as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think a lot of trainers need to take that on board. It's very easy to fall into that trap. I know I've done it before. Is like you just sort of, we'll just throw something together. It's a good workout, but what's the purpose? And sometimes you can lose that purpose. And no one gets it right every time. And it's okay to make mistakes, but you got to learn from those mistakes. Don't keep repeating them.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's one thing when you've got a very small handful of clients, like between 1 and 5. Like I definitely found myself in the trap as well, where you've got so many clients and you don't have enough time to actually sit down and kind of think about what you're going to do with each person, that it's so easy to be like, oh shit, I forgot to write this program for this person today. And you're just scrambling, and sometimes you can get away with it. I've definitely found myself some sessions, it's like, hey, that actually went really well, even though I had no idea what I was going to do 30 seconds before the workout started. Equally as much, I've had workouts where at the end of it, I'm like, holy crap, that was terrible. I should give that person their money back, because there was no flow to the workout. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And they can tell, like, people are switched on. They can tell when you don't know what you're doing or when you're making it up on the fly. Some people are, they'll say something. Some people will just kind of go with it. But it was when I got busier I found myself having to rely more heavily on having systems in place that allowed me to program in a more time efficient manner so that I could still give my clients the service and the experience that they were paying for and that they deserved. But I wasn't also spending 5-10 hours a week doing my programming
Yeah.
because that's just not like, that's not realistic when you're trying to run a full-time personal training business. You can't be doing it. So you've got to find those ways, and, you know, everyone's going to have their different ways of doing it. But you've got to have a system in place that will allow you to effectively and efficiently program for your clients in a way that's not going to take hours upon hours to do.
Yeah, like you said, if you've got a good framework and you know what you're working with, it makes a big difference. But you've really got to systemize your programming, because it does become writing 15 programs for 15 different people takes, you can't slap together a program in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got to take the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So like the system that I'm using at the moment is going back to me nerding out on spreadsheets. One of the silver linings of COVID was that I had a lot of spare time one day. So I created this spreadsheet that has automated functions for exercise selection. So I can basically, like, instead of me having to think of a specific exercise that I want to do, I just have to select the body part and movement that I want, and it will auto-populate an entire drop-down menu of exercises that relate to that. So if I want to do like a lower push exercise, I just click lower push, and I will have an entire drop-down menu populated of every single lower body push that I've put into that spreadsheet. And I can kind of just go through that and be like, okay, we're going to choose this exercise today. And then I'll do that, 8 times. There's my 8 exercises. Bang, I've got my program ready.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's just about playing around with sets, reps, tempo, loading, and all of that sort of stuff. And that just, that makes a program super easy to have ready to rock and roll.
Absolutely. Now, we're still going to talk training here, but I want to talk more about how you prepare for your training versus how you prepare for training someone else.
Cool. So my own workouts versus my workouts for my clients.
Yes.
Easy. Perfect. So this came very, very heavily out of the Joe DeFranco course that I did, because it focuses very much on physical preparation. So being able to physically prepare yourself for your workouts. And they have a whole system that they go through. I'm not going to run through that because we'll be here for hours, and the credit goes to all those guys. So if you're looking for information, like if you're watching this and you're looking for information on how to warm up, not just for yourself, but for people that you work with, go look up Joe DeFranco and Jim Smith. Their stuff is amazing. But basically what I do for my workouts, I have a very standardized warm up that I go through at the moment that involves just a lot of joint by joint mobilization. So starting from like wrist circles and then moving my way through the body joint by joint. So going into the elbows, then the shoulders, torso, hips, knees, ankles. And I'll kind of do that as my general warm up. I'll then have my specific anchor and mobility exercises that I need to do. So my anchor exercises are like my stability or activation based exercises. That'll depend on the session that I'm doing. If I'm doing a predominantly lower body session, I will choose two stability exercises for the lower body. Could be something like glute bridges, as an example, maybe some monster walks or some clamshells, something to activate the muscles. If it's upper body, band pull aparts are always something that I'll do, or some form of like scap push up or scap pull up type thing, just to activate those muscles. And then I'll do like a mobility piece as well. So basically strengthen what's weak, loosen what's tight. I'll add in kind of some central nervous system priming movements into the warm up as well. So the intention there is to get the CNS firing going into the session. This will usually be some form of jumping or plyometric type exercise. When I'm warming up myself, it's kind of, what do I feel like doing today? Broad jumps, vertical jumps, something like that. Sprints and prowlers are an awesome one as well if you can get into a gym. That stuff's really cool. And so basically for my clients, I teach them that process as well. So my very first session is like, okay, this is your general joint by joint mobility piece. Learn this. I'm going to show it to you. My expectation is that you've done this before you jump onto the Zoom call, because I don't want to spend 5 minutes of our Zoom session going through a joint by joint mobility session or mobility protocol, which is super easy for them to learn. So I teach it to them, and then I get them to do that. That's like bare minimum. They have to have that done before they jump onto the call. And then depending on what we're doing for the session, I'll follow the stability, mobility, and CNS driving based on what we're going to be doing for the session. So if we're starting, it's like predominantly a lower body session, then yeah, I'll do like some glute bridges or some clamshells. I'll get them into like a pigeon pose or something that's going to open up the hips a little bit more, just to start getting them ready. And then in terms of like those neural drives, this really depends on the level of the athlete that you've got. I've got a lot of beginners at the moment who are kind of like, holy crap, second wave of COVID, we didn't work out at all during the first wave, so we need someone to help us work out for this second wave. So quite low level, basic like skipping or just small little jumps is plyometric enough for them. But you can scale that and progress that all the way up to the type of athlete that you've got, and then obviously the sort of equipment that they've got. That's kind of like the general sort of flow. I try to not let my warm-ups go for any more than like 10 to 12 minutes because we've got a whole bunch of other stuff that kind of make up the meat and potatoes of the workout, and that's where people are going to get more bang for their buck. So as best as I can, I try to teach them, hey, here are the things that you should do before we get started, because you're really paying me, or you're really here for these main things, like me getting you strong or putting you through sessions that are going to help you lose weight. This mobility stuff is really important, don't get me wrong, but it's also something that I can teach you and that you can do on your own. And then it's the same with stretching at the end of the session as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think a big thing for myself and a lot of trainers is instilling that belief in people that you've actually got to take some form of ownership of your workout, whether you're paying a PT or doesn't matter. You know, if you're doing group classes, stuff like that, you've got to take ownership of your workout. So if you need to do mobility and it's being given to you by your PT, or the coach wants you to do extra mobility, or you want to do your own extra mobility, don't let anyone else dictate to you what you need to do for your body.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like, and this, like, I'm a massive believer in empowering the people that we work with. And, you know, I'm very honest with the people that I work with in that, like, you know, my intention is 6 to 12 months from now, you're going to be able to turn around to me and say, hey, Cameron, I love you, but I don't need you now. I can do this by myself. And if I can get someone to that level, I've done my job properly. Like, yes, I've lost a client, and yeah, that sucks because now I've got to find a new client, but I've made a positive impact on that person's life to the point where they feel confident that they can go out and do it by themselves. Now, the proof in the pudding is whether they actually can do it by themselves, and that's a different story. But just getting them to a point where they feel like they can do that is fantastic. And you know, that leads to some fairly tough conversations that you might have to have with your clients at some point during their journey. Like, I've had plenty of my own clients, and then even clients of trainers that were working under me, They would train 2 times a week with their trainer. And they would come to me after, 6 months and say, like, I haven't lost any weight. I haven't seen any results. Like, I want my money back. And then when we actually have a look at their attendance and their check-ins to the gym, we find out that they've only come into the gym the times that they've got their trainer. So they're not taking the ownership over themselves on being able to get into the gym an additional, even just an extra 1 session a week is going to make a world of difference. Right. But, these people, they like, and it's really funny. Like, people think that buying personal training is going to get them their results. And like, the reality is, like, it's nothing. It's like buying, like, I'm going to buy a gym membership on January 1st and I'm going to lose all of my weight for my New Year's resolution. And then they never step foot into the gym after they purchase that gym membership. It's exactly the same as a personal trainer. Like, hiring a personal trainer is one step, and it's a very big and it's a very important step. But if you're not taking ownership on the things that you're doing outside of the 1 or 2 hours a week that you're seeing that trainer, you will not see the results that you're looking for. And you'll get to the end of the program or the commitment term. You'll be like, well, that was a waste of money. It's like, no, it wasn't a waste of money. You just chose to not apply what that trainer was teaching you.
Yeah.
That's a very different conversation to have with people.
Yeah. And I think people need to take a really big takeaway from what you're saying is there is 168 hours in a week.
Yep.
If you go to a trainer 5 days a week, that's 5 hours. There's 163 other hours that are in your control. So, and it's, yes, you've got to work, you've got to do, but it's prepping your food, it's doing extra mobility, and it doesn't need to be an hour of yoga or whatever. It can be quick 10, like you said, 10 or 15 minutes, going for a walk, doing something else, making sure that instead of having chips, maybe you're having vegetables.
Yeah. Little
things make the biggest difference. And it's not what you're doing in the gym, it's what you're doing outside of the gym that gives you the result.
Yeah. We, not to downplay the importance of a personal trainer, but what we do in the gym plays a very minor role in the overall success of that person.
Yeah.
Where I think we have a bigger scope of influence as personal trainers is our ability to influence and change behaviors outside of the gym. So as you said, like, teaching that person how to meal prep, but then also inspiring and influencing them to the point where they want to go and meal prep. They want to do it, or they want to go for that extra 30-minute walk, or they want to get into the gym 15 minutes early to do the warm up that I've told them that I want them to do so that we can get stuck straight into their session, rather than us kind of diddle daddle around with a warm up before, because I'm like, going back to that warm up thing, like, I'm very diligent on that. Like, if you rock up to your session and you aren't warmed up, we're not going to streamline and do like, well, let's just do a 500-meter row and then we'll get squat and then it'll be okay. I'm like, no, we're going to do this warm up regardless of whether you arrived on time or 5 minutes late. We're doing this. So, you empower them, you give them the why, and then it's like, these are the things that I expect you to do outside of the gym, because what we do here just plays a very small role in your overall success.
Awesome. Now, I want you to go back 3 months and explain and give us your point of view of how everything went coming back during the process. Obviously, you had to bunker down in a hotel for 2 weeks. Just give us your perspective of how everything went. And what it was all like at that crazy time.
Yeah. So it was March 15th was when we first got put into lockdown over in Canada. And we were told that it was going to be a 2-week lockdown. I think that was the message kind of all around the world. It was like, hey, we just need to do this for 2 weeks. We'll get rid of it and it'll be okay. So we kind of like, I went into it thinking like, well, hell's yeah, I just got a 2-week vacation. awesome. Um, Very quickly, we kind of realized that this thing was going to stick around, and basically all of Canada completely shut down, including all of the immigration services that I needed to apply for permanent residency. So we were trying to find some other ways for me to gather those documents, and basically I think we got until about the middle of May was when I'm like, okay, this isn't going to go the way that I want it. We're going to have to come home. Um, at that point, we were like, oh, shit, are we even actually going to be able to come home? Because we'd heard that flights were being canceled, and it was really, really hard to get out. So we tried our luck. We kind of, we found something online that we thought, okay, let's get these flights and we'll see how we go. We were very fortunate. We experienced one 90-minute delay on our flight, and everything else was fine. No problems. It was like a 38-hour flight in total, including layovers, but like we made it. And so the experience from there was very surreal. We got off the plane. As soon as we got our baggage, we were ushered straight onto a bus with a select group that came from our plane as well. And we were taken straight to our hotel. We weren't allowed to do anything else. Bus, hotel, no, do not stop, do not collect $200, nothing. That was it. So we get put up into our room, and we'd heard stories of like, okay, we're going to get 15 minutes of outdoor time per day. So that was kind of like our expectation. We also thought like we're going to have access to the hotel's kitchen and their menu. So the food would be okay. What we got instead was, in the entire 2 weeks that we were in lockdown, we got one 15-minute break outside. So 2 weeks, one 15-minute outdoor break. And what we got there was we were taken to the rooftop of the hotel, into I think we worked it out, it was a 10 by 10 square meter courtyard, and we had 5 security guards that we shared that space with. That was what we got. In terms of the food, it turned out that the menu that we were given when we checked in, we had to pay for that food, but we were given 3 meals a day. And it was kind of like on a rotating menu. Hit and miss. It went from like a basic home cooked spaghetti bolognese one night to, I remember Saturday's lunch was an assortment of pies that looked like they got picked up frozen from Coles and then just put in the oven for 40 minutes. And there you go, there's lunch. We were I think we were on like the 12th floor of the hotel. Our room was facing into the atrium of the hotel, so we had no direct sunlight, and our windows didn't open at all. So, not only were we only allowed outside once in the 2 weeks, we also got no sunshine and no fresh air in that entire 2 weeks as well. Yeah. That was in a nutshell kind of my experience with it. I also, you'll enjoy this one. This is exercise related. So before we moved back, I purchased a 10 kilo weight vest from an equipment supplier, and I had it shipped over to my brother's place. And I basically just said to my brother, hey, when I arrive and I get taken to my hotel, can you drop this off at the concierge so they can bring it up to my room? Because I want it to work out. And he's like, yep, cool, no worries. So we check in, and we realize, so the process for us to get things brought to us was that they, and by they, I mean the taxpayers, were going to pay for a taxi driver to go to wherever the goods were, pick it up, drive it back to the hotel and deliver it. So I had to organize, well, the hotel organized for a taxi driver to drive out to Sunbury, which is where my brother lives. I'm in the Melbourne CBD in the hotel, by the way.
Yeah.
Taxi driver comes back, delivers my 10-kilo weight vest. And then, so that gets delivered. I get a call from the security guard. Hey, is this your weight vest? Yep. Yeah, we're unfortunately not going to be able to bring it up to your hotel room. I'm like, okay, why? It poses a security risk because it had metal plates in it. He was saying that I could potentially use those metal plates to smash the windows in my hotel room. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense because I'm on the 12th floor. So I don't know what smashing a window is going to accomplish. So he said, look, what we can do though, is we can let you take some dumbbells. We can bring some dumbbells from the gym up to the room for you to use. And I'm like, okay, what's stopping me from using the dumbbells to smash a hotel window? And he goes to me, look, all I'm doing is telling you what my boss is telling me. Like, okay, whatever. I'll take 2 18-kilo dumbbells. So I had 2 18-kilo dumbbells brought up to the room, but I wasn't allowed my weight vest, and I wasn't able to get that back until we checked out 2 weeks later.
Yeah. I'm at a loss for words for that. Yeah, I'm not even. I don't know how.
It's like logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll leave that one alone. That's more in depth thinking, more thought process than me.
Above our pay grade.
Yeah. So, how was business going while you were in Canada before all this happened?
Business was really good. So I started working for a company called Good Life Fitness, they're the biggest fitness chain in Canada. Now, I hadn't done chain gyms, like big gyms, since I left the YMCA to venture out with South Wharf. And I never thought that I would go back to it. I fell in love with this company. Like, it was amazing. I got put into a leadership role relatively quickly. I was a fitness manager over on Vancouver Island in Victoria, and then got promoted to one of the biggest clubs in the company over in Vancouver. When I took over that gym, we had 33 personal trainers on staff, not including myself, turning over anywhere between $200 to $300 a month in personal training revenue. So it was a big club. So I came in, like, I snapped up that job the second it got offered to me, because, like, why wouldn't you? Like, the earning potential was phenomenal. So we were in Australia over Christmas for a buddy's wedding, and then we went back and I moved over to Vancouver, and Kirby, my girlfriend, stayed in Victoria for an extra month or so. So I had about 6 to 8 weeks of experience in this new club, trying to build relationships with my new trainers and try to get this business or this club steamrolling. And then that's when we got shut down. And so basically we went from, we had our biggest month that I'd ever experienced in February, where we gained like 45 new personal training clients and turned over like $250,000. And then come March 15th, we had to tell every single client that they weren't allowed, that we were closed and they couldn't train anymore. Not only that, I had to call every single personal trainer and say, hey, you're on a paid leave of absence now. I don't know when we're going to be going back to work. Yeah. It was a really wild time. I was fortunate enough that Good Life allowed the management team to stay on the payroll for an extra few weeks. So it was kind of like a paid vacation for me in some regard. And in the first couple of weeks, I kind of lapped it up a little bit, just vegged out, didn't do much at all. When I started realizing that this was going to be more than 2 weeks and was going to be potentially months, that was when I really started thinking like, okay, you're going to have to start, thinking of plan B and plan C. because the reality is this is probably not going to work out the way that you wanted it to work out.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's before all this. We get back. Obviously, you're out of prison. I mean, the hotel. What is business like now for Cameron Joseph?
Yeah, I got basically straight out of lockdown, and even when I was in lockdown, I'd basically started spreading the word like, "Hey, I'm back, and we're going to give this a red hot go." Funnily enough, I'd never actually believed that it was A, sustainable, and B, viable to create a full-time career as a personal trainer until I started working for Good Life Fitness in Canada, and I witnessed firsthand hundreds of people creating absolutely fantastic careers working as full-time personal trainers. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. This is what I've always wanted to do. I now believe that it is something that can be done, and I believe that I have the skill set to do it. So let's give it a shot. So we get out of quarantine. I had a few days to kind of like settle in, kind of see family, see some friends, all of that sort of stuff. And basically we're like, okay, Monday we're going to hit the ground running. So I started working for Good Life Health Clubs over here, different company. They just share the same name. I had 3 days before we got put into stage 3 lockdown and all gyms got closed. So in those 3 days, basically it was just a bunch of networking, doing consultations, trying to gain clients. I was really fortunate enough that I was put in front of some really good quality leads and just some awesome people. So that when stage 3 came about, I was able to have very good conversations with these people where I was like, hey, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get into the gym, but outdoor personal training can happen. And I would like to offer that to you. And they all jumped at it. So that was great. I was like, okay, I can sort of not panic that much now because I've got a little bit of a client base. It's not fantastic in terms of what I wanted to do, but it's better than having no clients. At the moment, so I was doing that. I've also got my online aspect of my business as well, which is geared more towards my CrossFitters and my competitive CrossFitters. That's picked up quite a bit since lockdowns come in. Obviously, people are still looking for someone to guide them through their fitness journey, whether it's CrossFit or powerlifting or anything. Like, people are looking for help because people don't know what to do, especially when they're cooped up in a room all by themselves. So the online aspect of the business has actually been going quite well. When stage 4 restrictions got put in, I had to pivot again. And basically all of my face-to-face clients, I offered Zoom sessions. Yeah. That was a little bit more of a tougher conversation to have. It's been hit and miss for the most parts. I had about a 50-50 yes, no out of that. So I've got, half of my clients are training with me via Zoom throughout the week. The other half are on a pause right now until we can go back to face-to-face training. So they still have active agreements with me. They're just kind of just chilling out until we can get back. I made a point of making sure that when I was having those conversations with those guys, that like, hey, just because you don't want to do Zoom personal training, it doesn't mean you're no longer a client of mine. I am still here to support. I'm still here to help. I'm only a phone call. I'm only a text message away. Like, as far as I'm concerned, you are still clients of mine and I still want to help you. So just, I made sure that they understood that they weren't in this alone. And they had someone that they could reach out to until we got to a point where I could start seeing them 2 to 3 times a week again, when personal training's allowed.
Oh, that makes sense. So how's your mental state been since coming back and going through all this? How have you coped? And, some of the things you've put in place to keep you you know, we all have highs and lows, but what sort of kept you on the level?
It's been this time it's been really rough. Like I was talking to Kirby, my girlfriend, yesterday, I think it was, where like we've effectively been in lockdown since March, like with between the Canadian lockdown, being forced to leave Canada, going through the hotel quarantine, and then only having a week and a half, 2 weeks before getting put back in lockdown again. Like it's been a full like 6 months for us now, and it's really starting to take its toll because neither of us can work. She's a myotherapist, and they're not classified as an essential service under the stage 4 rule, so she's not able to work. So for me, like I'm quite fortunate in that I still have my clients. So I still wake up with a sense of purpose every day to serve them as best as I can, as well as put content into the world that is going to help people who are still in lockdown and need something to, kind of help move them forward while they're in lockdown. But then also the people who are living in areas where they're not locked down, it's like, okay, well, now we can actually start thinking about achieving goals and performance-based targets. So I've got a sense of purpose every day, which, is good. I definitely still have my days where I'm like, this sucks. This is not where I wanted to be at this point in time of the year. Some things that I'm doing to really kind of manage my stress levels at the moment. I've got a lot of equipment out in the garage, so I'm working out quite very regularly. I'm getting in 5 sessions a week. Has been a huge thing for me in making sure that I am exercising as much as I possibly can. I also took this as a time to start thinking about some of the things in my fitness game that I've not prioritized before, and that I've considered weaknesses. And I've started focusing on them. So mobility has been something that I just ignored for the longest of times, because I thought I was invincible, and I don't need to do mobility. I don't need to stretch. It's okay. So I downloaded the GoWOD app and I subscribed to them. And I'm GoWodding. I was doing it every single day, like religiously every single day. I kind of dropped off a little bit over the last couple of weeks. I need to give myself a kick up the butt for that. But I just found that like setting a routine that was based around my exercise, my mobility, and then to another extent, my nutrition as well, and making sure that I had a routine and a plan surrounding my nutrition. If I can control those things, then I'm going to get out of lockdown in a better place than when I went into it from a physical and nutritional standpoint. That gives me motivation to stay the course until we can get out of here.
Yeah, excellent. We're going to start wrapping it up now. One thing I do want to ask is something that can you think of something that you've taken from your training that you use in everyday life?
Setting mini goals throughout the day, I think, is important from a productivity and intensity standpoint. Like when I think of intensity and I think of like work, it's really easy for you to go into like low intensity or low quality work where you're kind of distracted and you're a little bit all over the place and you're not focusing on what you're doing. So in my training, I set a lot of little mini goals. If I'm doing a big Metcon that's got like, for example, 2 days ago, we did a workout that smack bang in the middle of it had 80 bar facing burpees in it. And the overall goal was to do it unbroken. I wasn't going to stop at all. But what I did was I broke it down into mini chunks and little mini targets. So I'm like, okay, sets of 10. So I'm like, okay, Cameron, just get to 10. All right, now you just got to get to 20. Now you got to get to 30. And you just focus on those little targets. And then before you know it, that overall goal has been achieved. So that's something that I apply to my day as well, especially with my work. If I've got, content that I want to release, I've got my big goal that I want to do, but then what I'll do is I'll break it down into smaller chunks and smaller deliverables and achievables. And I start just chipping away at those things, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed with this big thing that you want to do, to the point where you're like, well, shit, that's too hard. I'm not going to do it. I'm not even going to bother. But if you can see like the little steps that go through it, it's like, okay, I only need to do this. Now I only need to do this. And you build that throughout, all of a sudden those big tasks are a lot easier to achieve and can be achieved a lot quicker as well.
Awesome. That's really good stuff. Now, just to finish off, how can people find you? Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can hit me up on Instagram is where I'm most active. So at Overpowered Athletics. You can also get me on email at overpoweredathletics@gmail.com. I am working on getting a website or a landing page or something going on at the moment, but I'm very active through my emails, very active through my Instagram. We did just put out a big promotion today, starting to lead into the CrossFit Open for next year. If that's something that any of the viewers are really, really interested in, those spots are super limited. I'm capping it at 10. I do expect those numbers to get snapped up quite quickly. So if you want to do really, really well in the Open for 2021 and you're not sure how to do it, hit me up on either Instagram or email. I'd love to set up a free chat with you and we'll be able to work out how we can smash those goals.
Awesome. Thanks very much for your time today, Cam, and we will finish it up there.